Imagine this. You're in court, wearing the same wrinkled suit from the day you got arrested. The air smells of old wood, cold justice, and something worse, betrayal. Across the room sits your wife, the woman you promised forever to, the woman you once believed would grow old with you. But she's not here to defend you. She's here to bury you. She places her hand on the Bible and swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But you know every word out of her mouth is a lie. You know she planted the drugs in your trunk. You know she called the police. You know she did it with help from her secret lover, Tony, a woman you never even knew existed. And the jury? They believe her. That was the moment Darius Hall's life shattered in two. He was just 26, young, hopeful, and doing everything right. A youth counselor in Charlotte, North Carolina. A man dedicated to second chances, using his own past to guide kids away from street life. But while he was saving others, no one saved him. Not even his own wife. Camille Hall, the quiet, well-mannered nurse assistant, had been living a double life. Behind Darius's back, she was wrapped up with Tony Lattimore, a bold, street-savvy nurse who didn't trust men, didn't want Camille married to one, and had zero interest in Darius surviving their plan. Together, Camille and Tony spun a lie so vicious it sent Darius to prison for 15 years. And when he finally walked out, it wasn't forgiveness he came looking for. It was closure. It was reckoning. Before all this, Darius was just a good man trying to do good. At 18, he'd gotten caught with a small bag of weed and a couple of pills. It wasn't major, but it was enough to stain his name and send him away for 6 months. When he came out, he made a promise to himself. He was never going back. And he meant it. He got a steady job at a youth center on Charlotte's East Side, ran basketball programs, mentored teens, took night classes, earned his certification in youth counseling. He didn't show off, didn't chase likes or followers. He drove an old Nissan Altima, rotated 2 pairs of sneakers, and still called the older ladies a church ma'am. He had a steady voice, kind eyes, and a heart too big for a world like his. For 3 years, he gave that heart to Camille. Camille was 28, petite and soft-spoken, working long shifts as a nurse assistant. She grew up in a home ruled by religion, where emotions were hidden behind politeness and scripture. Darius met her at a community health fair. She was giving blood pressure tests. He joked she made his heart skip. She laughed, and that's where it began. Their love came fast and full. Within 2 months, they were living together. 6 months after that, they got married in a courthouse, no fanfare. Just vows whispered in a hallway, and rings slipped on fingers in silence. But real life doesn't always honor wedding vows. At first, the changes were small. Camille stopped laughing. She stopped engaging, said she was tired, said she was stressed. When Darius asked what was wrong, she'd shrug. Nothing. When he tried to take her out, she said she wasn't in the mood. She became cold, distant, faced the wall in bed, spoke in clipped sentences, smiled less. Darius thought it was work pressure. He had no idea what was really going on. Behind the curtain of their marriage, Camille had started something new with Tony. A relationship built in secret, fueled by bitterness, and strengthened by a shared desire to eliminate Darius from the picture. And they did it, ruthlessly. 15 years. 15 years gone in the blink of an accusation, in the echo of a lie sworn under oath. But Darius didn't come out of prison to forget. He came back for answers, for justice, maybe even revenge. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about how love can twist into something sharp. It's about how lies can bury the innocent. And it's about what happens when a man who gave everything loses it all, except the fire in his chest to make it right. He kept telling himself maybe she just needed space. So he gave her patience. Flowers on Fridays, back rubs on Sundays, homemade chicken soup every Wednesday after her long shifts. He tried, he tried to bridge the growing silence with kindness. But the wall between them just kept getting higher. And then came Tony Lattimore. Camille met Tony through the hospital. Tony worked the ER night shift and was everything Camille wasn't. Bold, loud, unapologetically confident. Tattoos wrapped around her arm like stories. Long box braids trailed down her back. Gold hoops swung from her ears, and her smile, it said, "I don't care what you think about me." She walked like she owned every room she entered. At first, Camille mentioned her like any work friend. "Tony said the funniest thing today. Tony made me this playlist. Tony thinks I should cut my hair." Darius listened and nodded. He figured his wife had finally found a friend at work she could vibe with. But soon, things started to feel off. Camille began coming home late, said she was helping Tony move, or that they grabbed drinks after their shifts. On her days off, she'd disappear without saying where she was going. Her phone was always face down. She changed her passcode. Darius wasn't the jealous type, but he wasn't blind. One night, he asked her straight out, "You, when Tony got something going on?" Camille blinked. "What? I'm asking you a question." She laughed, but not the laugh he knew. This one was sharp, cold. "You're paranoid," she said, rolling her eyes. "Always looking for something that ain't there." "But is it there?" he pressed. "No," she snapped. "And I'm tired of defending every friendship I have. You're suffocating me, Darius." That shut the conversation down cold. From then on, Camille moved like a ghost. She left before sunrise, came home after midnight, spoke less and less. Sometimes, Darius would wake in the middle of the night to find her standing alone by the kitchen sink in the dark, staring out the window. "You okay?" he'd ask. "I'm just tired," she'd say. Always tired. Then, she started missing work. Once, then again, then 3 times in 1 week. "What's going on?" Darius asked. "I'm depressed," she said, thinking about taking some time off. He encouraged her to. He offered to cover the bills, suggested therapy, told her she didn't have to carry the weight alone. But Camille wasn't trying to heal. She wasn't depressed. She was done. What Darius didn't know was that Camille had already checked out. She wasn't staying for love. She was staying because leaving was messy, because explaining the truth to her parents, to the church, meant shame, meant judgment, meant saying the words out loud. "I've fallen for a woman." She wanted freedom, but without the consequences. And Tony? Tony had a plan for that. The affair had started innocently. A few drinks, some lingering laughter, a touch that stayed too long. But once that line was crossed, there was no return. Camille was all in. This wasn't the complicated love she had with Darius, built on survival, guilt, and duty. No, this was wildfire. This was freedom. This was Camille finally feeling like herself. But freedom always comes with a cost. Camille knew if she left, her parents would disown her. The church folks would whisper. Her name would burn in the mouths that once praised her wedding. And then there was Darius. He'd never hit her, never raised his voice. But she knew, deep in her bones, he wouldn't understand. So she stayed. And she lied. And she waited. Waited for the right moment to escape. But Tony wasn't one for waiting. One night, after wine and soft music and skin against skin, Camille sat on the floor, resting her head on Tony's knee, and whispered, "If he was gone, we'd be free." Tony's hand froze mid-stroke. "You sure about that?" Camille didn't answer, but she didn't take it back either. Tony knew a guy, Sean, a quiet, shady dealer who moved pills and powder through a barbershop backroom. He packaged the goods in toolboxes and delivered like clockwork. One night, behind a Popeyes parking lot, Tony met Sean. She handed over $500, no questions asked. He gave her a small black pouch, 3 vials of Coke, 2 packs of Oxy, and enough street dust to destroy a man's life. They wrapped it tight, sealed it, then waited for the perfect moment. That moment came on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Darius was at the barbershop getting a fresh cut. His car was parked right outside, windows up, keys out of reach. But Camille, his wife, had a spare. She slipped away during her lunch break, nerves buzzing like a live wire. Her hands trembled as she pulled into the lot. Her heart thudded in her ears as she unlocked the trunk. She didn't even glance at the black pouch. She just lifted the carpet, tucked it beneath the spare tire, slammed the trunk shut, and wiped her fingerprint from the latch. Then she got back in her car and drove back to work like nothing had happened. That night, she smiled like always. "Want to do tacos for dinner?" she asked. Darius kissed her on the cheek. "Yeah, sounds good. Love you." She nodded, pretended she wasn't rotting inside. The next morning, an anonymous email hit the inbox of the Charlotte Metro Narcotics Unit. The tipster claimed a man named Darius Hall was selling drugs to kids at the local community center. Said he was using his nonprofit job as cover. Said the stash was in his trunk. No fingerprints. No sender. No trail. Just a weaponized lie dressed in digital ink. A week later, it all came crashing down. Darius was on his way home from work. The sun was low, the music soft. Then blue lights, flashing in his rearview mirror like a warning from fate. He wasn't speeding, didn't have warrants, had no reason to run. So he pulled over without hesitation, thinking it was just a busted tail light or some mix-up. When he rolled the window down, 2 officers approached, stiff-backed and unreadable. "Mr. Hall," one said, "mind stepping out of the vehicle?" Darius blinked. "Everything okay? We received a tip. We need to search your car." He raised his eyebrows. "Search it for what?" "Step out, sir." He stepped out, calm, confused, not panicked yet. He leaned against the hood while they searched. It didn't take long. One opened the trunk. Another reached in. The moment the baggie surfaced, Darius felt his stomach flip. A sick, low drop like a roller coaster dive. "What the hell is that?" he asked. No answer. Just a plastic pouch held up like evidence in a TV drama. "Sir, you're under arrest for possession with intent to distribute. You have the right to remain silent." Wait, that's not mine. I don't know where that came from. But the cuffs were already snapping closed around his wrists, cold and unyielding. At the station, Darius sat in silence. He was scared, yes, but mostly he was embarrassed, humiliated. This couldn't be happening. He was Darius Hall, youth mentor, redemption story, not some street dealer. Then Camille walked in, tears in her eyes, scrubs on, hair pulled back tight like she just clocked out her shift. She looked wrecked, like someone who didn't want to believe what she already knew. "I just found out," she told the detective, her voice trembling. "He's been acting strange. I think he's been selling things out of the center." Darius's mouth went dry. He turned to her, stunned. She wouldn't even look at him. Later, she told the DA she'd found pills in his gym bag. Said he had a past. Said she thought he'd changed, but maybe he hadn't. They offered her a deal, testify, and her name would stay clean. She didn't hesitate. The trial was swift and brutal. The jury didn't need convincing. Black man, prior drug charge, product in the trunk, a tearful wife on the stand. It was textbook. The prosecutor painted him as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Minner by day, dealer by night. Two-faced, dangerous, untrustworthy. Darius sat through it all, numb. He didn't cry, didn't scream, but the betrayal that sat heavy in his chest, burning like coals. He was found guilty on all counts. The judge didn't blink when she read the sentence. 15 years. No parole for the first 12. When the bailiff led him away, Darius didn't look back. The only person he ever thought would stand beside him was the one who handed him over. They sent him to Caldwell Correctional, a medium-security prison with high fences and no mercy. First week in, he got jumped in the showers by 3 inmates. They thought he looked too clean, too soft. They broke 2 of his ribs and knocked out a tooth before a guard even noticed. That's when Darius Hall learned the first rule of prison: never trust silence. The second? Don't act soft, not even once. After that brutal beating in the showers, Darius changed. He kept his head low, ate fast, slept light, spoke only when necessary. He volunteered for janitor duty and stuck close to the old heads, men who'd already decided they had nothing left to prove. The prison library became his sanctuary, the gym his therapy. Every night, he'd lie on his back, stare at the ceiling, and think about her. Camille. In the beginning, he wrote her letters. Simple things. "I still love you. I forgive you. Why?" Then came the birthday notes, apology after apology for things he didn't do but thought she might believe he had. Hopes that they could somehow fix what had shattered. But the mailbox stayed silent. By the second year, he stopped writing altogether. Time inside moved strangely, fast when things were rough, slow when they were unbearable. The calendar didn't mean much. Only survival did. In year 7, the phone rang in the middle of the night. A guard summoned him to the office. "Your mama passed," the guard said without emotion. "Heart attack." Darius just stood there and nodded. Can I go to the funeral? The guard looked up, almost pitying him. Not on your sentence. Sorry. That night, Darius didn't eat, didn't speak, just sat in the far corner of his cell, silent, staring at the peeling paint until the sun came up. His mother had been the only person who believed in him unconditionally, and he never even got to say goodbye. By year 9, he gave up on the outside world completely. He stopped calling, stopped reaching out. Nobody was waiting on the other end of the line anyway. But then everything shifted. During a game of spades in the rec yard, an old friend from Charlotte strolled up with news that hit like a gut punch. You heard about Camille? The guy asked. Darius didn't blink. What about her? She's down in Georgia. Savannah, I think. Living with some woman. Long pause. You remember that chick she used to hang with? Tony. Tony. That name cracked something wide open in his chest. Yeah, he remembered Tony. From that day forward, something in Darius changed. He didn't yell, didn't lash out, but the calm, quiet man turned icy. His thoughts shifted from survival to strategy. His heart, once soft, hardened into blueprints. By year 15, Darius Hall wasn't the same man. He moved different, spoke less, looked at his own reflection like a stranger. But he didn't flinch at the face staring back. Bearded, hardened, 41, wiser, colder. The morning he was released, the guards opened the gate like it was just another Tuesday. You got people picking you up? One of them asked. Darius shook his head. I'll find my way. And just like that, he stepped into the sunlight. No balloons, no hugs, just clean air. For the first time in 15 years, the world didn't smell like bleach and steel. But what he felt wasn't freedom. It was purpose. 15 years. 15 long years with the same question echoing in his mind. Why? He had $1,200 to his name, earned scrubbing toilets and mopping prison floors. It wasn't much, but it was enough to rent a room on the west side and buy a cheap burner phone. Darius didn't care about starting over. He wanted answers. He began quietly asking around. A few names from the old days. Someone mentioned Camille had gone south, but nothing solid. People either didn't know or didn't want to talk. It was like she'd vanished. So Darius took a gamble. He spent $500 of the only money he had and hired a private investigator, Reuben, a former cop turned PI with sharp eyes and no small talk. Darius handed him a slip of paper. Camille Hall, he said. She lied on me. I just need to know where she landed. 2 weeks later, Reuben came back with a folder. She goes by Camille Lattimore now. Moved to Savannah 7 years ago. Married to a woman. Darius's jaw clenched. You know the name? Reuben nodded. Tony Lattimore. Wife used to be an ER nurse. Now runs some mobile health outreach thing. Camille's a nurse manager at Memorial Health. They've got a house together. Quiet neighborhood. Nice place. Then Reuben slid a photo across the table. And just like that, the face that haunted him for 15 years stared back. The photo was grainy, but there was no mistaking her. Camille, walking hand in hand with a little boy who looked about 7. Big eyes, a crooked smile that echoed a familiar face. Darius stared at the image in silence. Whose kid? He asked quietly. Reuben, the private investigator, lit a cigarette and exhaled slowly. According to birth records, she had him through IVF. Sperm donor from a clinic in Atlanta. Paper trail's clean. Darius didn't respond. He just kept looking at the picture, at the life he didn't even know existed. That night, sleep refused to come. He found himself scrolling through Tony's Facebook page. It was public, full of loud, confident posts, selfies, inspirational quotes, video clips from her health clinic. She looked like a woman who had everything figured out. Camille's page, on the other hand, was locked down. No profile picture, no recent updates. But tag photos told the real story. Birthdays, baby showers, brunches with friends. In every frame, Camille was smiling. She looked free, happy. Then he saw it. A comment buried under an old photo. Just a throwaway line from a mutual friend. Can't believe she went that far over what she thought was just a one-night thing. Darius blinked. Scroll back. Read again. And suddenly, it all started to make sense. Camille thought he'd cheated. That was the trigger. She'd heard a rumor. Something small, like him hugging a coworker outside the youth center. Nothing serious. Nothing true. But to her, it confirmed every insecurity. And instead of talking to him, she chose betrayal. She chose revenge. She was the one hiding secrets. She was the one who'd already crossed the line. And yet, she planted drugs in his trunk, took the stand, and buried him because she thought he might have strayed. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Savannah, the kind made for lemonade and porch swings. Children rode bikes down the sidewalk. A sprinkler clicked rhythmically in the neighbor's yard. The wind carried the faint sound of chimes. But Darius Hall didn't come for peace. He parked a few blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, calm and deliberate, hands in his pockets. He didn't flinch when a dog barked or when the wind brushed his face. He just walked, one step at a time, until he stood in front of the house. 2,816. The garden was tidy. White roses lined the walkway. A lawn chair sat in the shade beneath a tree. Wind chimes swayed gently by the porch. He knocked once. The door creaked open. Tony Lattimore appeared in a tank top and sweatpants, her braids wrapped in a scarf. Her eyes narrowed as she tried to place him. "Can I help you?" she asked. Then recognition hit. Her jaw locked. Her expression changed. Camille appeared behind her, holding a glass of lemonade dotted with slices of strawberry. She froze mid-step. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "Darius," she whispered. He smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. 15 years, he said, his voice calm. "Y'all sleep good at night?" Camille's lips parted, but nothing came out. I didn't mean for it to go like that," she stammered. "You have to believe me." Tony took a step toward the hallway, hand reaching for her phone on the entry table. Darius pulled a matte black Glock 9mm from his jacket. "Don't," he said. Quiet. Firm. They all sat down in the living room. Camille was trembling. Tony sat stiff, fists clenched. "You lied on me," Darius said, staring at Camille. "Planted drugs in my car. Took the stand. Told the world I was poison." Camille opened her mouth, but the tears arrived before the words. "I thought you were cheating," she said between shallow breaths. "I didn't know how to deal with it. I thought it was the only way out. I couldn't keep living a lie. Tony said we could make it clean," she added, her voice breaking. "I was scared. I was in love. I hated myself. I didn't know how to come out. I didn't want to lose everything." Darius's voice turned cold. "You didn't lose anything. You gained everything. A house, a child, a new name. And he lost 15 years. Meanwhile, I buried my mama from a prison phone. No last hug. No final words. Just a scratchy connection and a silence I'll never forget." Tony shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "Look, man, this ain't the way," she said, her voice tense. "You want to talk? Fine, but not like this." Darius turned to face her. The gun in his hand didn't waver. He pulled the trigger. The first shot struck her in the chest. The second tore through her throat. Tony Lattimore collapsed sideways, gasping for breath, blood soaking through her tank top and pooling fast on the hardwood floor. Her legs twitched. Then she stopped moving. Camille screamed. She stumbled toward the front door, but her foot caught the edge of the coffee table, sending her crashing to the ground. Darius walked toward her slowly, like a man walking through a storm he no longer feared. Camille crawled backward, her hands raised, her face soaked in tears and snot. "Please, Darius, please. I was young. I was stupid. I messed up. But I swear, I never stopped feeling guilty. I never stopped thinking about you." He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "You swore to tell the truth," he said coldly. Then he raised the gun one last time. "Now tell God." The final shot echoed through the house like judgment. Afterward, Darius didn't run. He didn't wear a disguise. No hoodie, no sunglasses, just a plain t-shirt, jeans, and the weight of what he'd done. He drove straight to the nearest police station, pulled into the lot, parked, walked inside like a man checking in for a routine appointment. No panic, no drama. He stepped up to the front desk. "I killed 2 people," he said flatly. "I'm not sorry." Then he pulled the Glock from his coat, gently placed it on the counter. Slide lock, chamber empty, safety on. The detectives were stunned. They weren't used to this. No screaming, no struggle. Just a man sitting there answering questions like he was reading from a grocery list. And when they asked him why, He leaned in and stared them straight in the eye. "She lied," he said. "She stole 15 years of my life. While I sat in a cage, she played house, wife, mother, career, clean record. I lost everything. You tell me, what was I supposed to do with that?" His taped confession was added to the case file that night. Clear, composed, and chilling. Back in Savannah, the aftermath settled like a heavy fog. Camille's son, just 7 years old, was placed in the care of Tony's older sister, Rhonda. She lived in a quiet suburb just outside Atlanta and, according to the courts, had no prior knowledge of what had happened. Camille's family stayed silent. No public statement, no obituary, no funeral details, just quiet shame. When Darius appeared in court, he looked the same way he did when he first entered prison, stone-faced, silent, unreachable. He didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He didn't beg. He just stood there, unblinking, as the judge read his sentence. Life in prison, without the possibility of parole. No one in the courtroom moved. No gasps. No weeping. Just the sound of the gavel and the finality of justice, 15 years too late. Now, back behind bars, Darius Hall lives in a different kind of silence. Same gray walls. Same metal bunk. Same clank of keys echoing down the halls. But this time, there's no confusion. No searching for answers. No desperate letters sent into the void. This time, he knows exactly who he is. He reads. He writes. He spends hours alone in the yard, unmoving. His stillness unsettles the guards. He doesn't argue, doesn't fight. He's not angry anymore, because anger, he's learned, comes from hope. And Darius stopped hoping for peace a long time ago. So now, the world watches from the outside, wondering, was Darius Hall a cold-blooded killer? Or just a broken man who finally cracked after being betrayed by the only woman he ever trusted? Tell us what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear them all. And if this story gripped you the way it gripped us, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that don't fade. They haunt.